Everyone, remain calm.
Yeah, that's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming.
Somebody talk to me! What is happening?
Welcome to Jurassic World.
You're listening to the Jurassic Park Podcast.
You want to consult here or in my bungalow? Hold on to your butts.
Well, we're back.
Hello, and welcome to the 129th episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Jost, and we're here to discuss all things Jurassic Park. In this episode, we have some details on the Iron Studios Jurassic Park model in the news section. Then we're going to be heading to Site B to discuss some of the thoughts and concerns surrounding the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom trailer with Slash Films senior writer and podcaster Ben Pearson. He'll give us a little bit of his industry insight into the marketing and some of the concepts tied to the trailer. Alright, well that was a quick intro for once. We've got a great episode for you, so why don't we start this off with a bit of Jurassic news from around the world.
18 minutes and your company catches up on 10 years of research.
Access made program. Access and security.
These pictures were taken in hospital in Costa Rica 48 hours ago.
I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
It's day. I guarantee it.
Via Jurassic Outpost, we have a few details on the 1/10 scale model for Jurassic Park, the breakout set from Iron Studios. We've been talking about this piece for a few weeks now. It was recently revealed at the Comic-Con in Brazil. This entire set is so detailed, so huge, features everything you'd want from the breakout set. Of course, the T-Rex, it's got Grant, Malcolm, Lex and Tim, it's got two explorers, it's got the ground with the track that these cars run on, footsteps in the ground, the fence, the concrete, even plants or trees. It's crazy. This thing is so insanely detailed, and now we have the prices that are available for these items. Now, in their article on the Outpost, they do mention that it is available worldwide with only distribution in the US currently undetermined. So take that as you will. But starting off here, it looks like Set A, which is the left side, featuring fence, plants, destroyed Explorer, Lex and Tim, plus a T-Rex, is looking at $1,199.99 USD. Set B, which is more the middle and the right base, let's see, the fence, more fence and plants, the Ford Explorer, Alan Grant, and Ian Malcolm. Same thing, that one is $1,199.99 USD. If you want the Ian Malcolm art scale, 1/10 scale, that is $89.99. Alan Grant is $89.99 as well. The T-Rex, I guess itself, on a custom base, is $649.99. And a Ford Explorer is same thing, 1/10 scale. Looks like that's going to be the same, $649.99. So there you have it. There's all the details. These things are incredible. Like, I'm looking at the pictures now on the Outpost, and they've even got all the detailed stuff in the back of these Ford Explorers, the maps, that container that, they grab the flares from. It's incredible. So much stuff here, and decent prices. Some of those are a little bit more expensive for the full sets. If you wanted both those pieces, that's going to cost you a lot. But if you wanted just the figures themselves, it's not too bad. You could pick those up pretty easily. If you want to find out more information and see more pictures, head to the link in our show notes. A little update here for everybody who's a box office geek like myself. Star Wars The Last Jedi has bounced Jurassic World to the number 3 spot on the all-time opening weekends list. Back in 2015, Jurassic World came in with $208 million, securing them the number 1 spot at the time. Then Star Wars The Force Awakens came in, beat it by quite a bit with $247 million. And then this past weekend, Star Wars The Last Jedi came in, slotted itself in the number 2 spot with $220 million. Congratulations to Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney, everybody over there. And number 3 is not too bad for Jurassic World, so that's pretty awesome. And I'm super excited to see where Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom falls in here. I'm not too sure if it's going to do better than Jurassic World, but it'll be interesting to find out. If you want to take a look at those figures, head to the link in our show notes.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Thank God for Site B.
Site B?
Yes, Site B.
No force on earth or heaven could get me on that island.
Site B.
Don't worry, I'm not making the same mistakes again.
Come on, okay, so there's another island with dinosaurs, no fences.
Site B.
And you want to send people in?
Yes.
A very few people?
Yes.
It's not a research expedition anymore. It's a rescue operation, and it's leaving right now.
You cannot land on this island.
This is Isla Sorna. Site B.
Yes.
We're on Isla Sorna, and we need to talk to the boat.
Site B.
No, a lady. Enough. Wrong frequency.
Here we are again, back on Site B. I do see a little bit of smoke billowing off in the distance. Might be the direction of Nublar, so hopefully everything's okay over there. But today, here on Sorna, we have Slash Film senior writer, who's been known to write a Jurassic article or two, Ben Pearson. How's the island treating you, man?
Hey, it's going great. The weather's surprisingly nice this time of year.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm a little worrisome about whatever's going on over there in the distance, but we'll stick to this island for now. Everything should be fine. So I got a question for you. This is a question that well, actually, before we get into that, I'll just kind of let everybody know we're going to talk about the trailer today. I don't know, not really spoilers per se, but whatever is in the trailer, it's safe to talk about. Might expand on it a little bit here and there, but we're going to talk about that, our reactions to, stuff like Universal's marketing and different concepts from the trailer and stuff. So if you don't want to hear that, tune out, but that's what we're covering. But like I said, Ben, I do have a question for you to start out. I ask everybody this question. So if you were stuck in a kitchen with a velociraptor, what would you do, and would you make it out alive?
Oh God, I would definitely die. There's no way I would get out of that alive. I'd probably try to hide in one of the cabinets, but I'm like 6'1", so there's no way I would fit. I would be knocking over pots and pans, making all sorts of noise. I think I would last all of about 45 seconds. Yeah, that probably sounds about right. That's what most of our guests say. So it's a tough situation, man. I don't know if I can make it out, but I like to hope I would, but chances are pretty slim. Those kids got pretty lucky. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I guess before we get too deep, I know you didn't have it on your top films of 2015, but what are your thoughts actually on Jurassic World before we get too far?
Yeah, so I was watching I remember specifically walking into the screening of Jurassic World and thinking there's no way this movie is going to be great, and being pleasantly surprised by the film. I thought I was a big fan of Safety Not Guaranteed, which was Colin Trevorrow's indie debut, and I really like Jurassic World. I think especially I know the movie has I think it's a 72% right now on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's pretty well liked. But in the critical community on film Twitter, as it were, the movie has suffered an immense backlash, and I know that it's not cool to like Jurassic World right now. But I definitely like the original movie, or not the original movie, but the 2015 movie. Yeah. And yeah, I thought that it was way smarter than people gave it credit for, I think, because it's basically, to me, it's a movie about blockbuster filmmaking. And I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you probably touched on this at some point in many of your episodes going way back.
There's a lot. There's too many.
But the idea that, Bryce Dallas Howard's character saying that nobody's impressed by a dinosaur anymore, and consumers want something bigger, and all of that talk just sort of struck me as a metaphor for the way that blockbuster film culture has been built up over the past few years, and how it's all about spectacle and all that stuff. And I thought the movie sort of grappled with that in a pretty compelling way. I still think the original Jurassic Park is my favorite of the series, but I thought Jurassic World was about as good of a sequel as fans could have hoped for at that time.
Yeah, they had a lot of work to do, and I think they did, an admirable job getting that thing up and running and hitting all the right notes that they needed to hit to kind of strike a chord with a vast audience. They don't just have to adhere to like the major fans like us here on the podcast, but they have to hit everybody, all the demographics, and I think they did a great job. And you're right, man. The film Twitter is kind of out of control with the hate. It's really crazy because you ask people, people that are just fans of movies or just watch movies, and the general consensus is it's fun. It's a good film. But yeah, if you follow film Twitter, if you just like search on Twitter something like Jurassic World bad, you get some really like crazy out there tweets, and yeah, it's not fun to look at. And a lot of that backlash is due to Colin Trevorrow too, which is funny because like you said, Safety Not Guaranteed was pretty highly looked upon, and people really liked that. People were excited about Jurassic World, and somewhat excited when he got announced for Star Wars. Not really, but then just, backlash hit, and it was downhill from there. And I don't know where he stands at the moment, but, a lot of Jurassic fans still look at him in a good light.
Yeah, for sure.
But, so after the trailer was released, you wrote a great article breaking down the trailer frame by frame. So let's dive in here. What are your thoughts on the Fallen Kingdom trailer?
So I want to preface this by, again, saying that I really liked Jurassic World, and there were some observations that I made about the Fallen Kingdom trailer that that I feel hopeful about. But overall, I honestly wasn't super crazy about this trailer. I thought it relied a lot on CG when all of the talk that I'd been hearing anyway from Colin and the other filmmakers had been, there had been such a focus on the idea of practical dinosaurs in this movie and how they were really going to, shift. And we didn't really see that in this first trailer. Obviously, this is a trailer that, we're still months and months away from the release. So there's definitely plenty of time for them to sort of shape the narrative and sort of course correct a little bit. But I do think for them to come out of the gate with a really CG heavy trailer like this sort of, I guess, it goes against a little bit of the messaging that they had been, spending all these months, this past year or two, sort of putting out there. There were some cool moments, but just generally, that's sort of what I thought about that. What do you think?
I'm a huge fan, and I obviously loved it, but I do agree. I think some of those aspects are definitely true. I just couldn't get over how excited I was and just the anticipation and all. That buildup was insane for that trailer. It was like more than any movie I've ever seen, which is weird. But yeah, I loved it. And those few images that just really stuck out to me, Brachiosaurus on Main Street there at the Innovation Center, the Rex roaring and stuff like that. All amazing shots. I love the aspect of the volcano. I think that's a really cool idea. Very retro, old school dinosaur, tale in a way. But you're right, man. The reactions from film Twitter and some actually just general audiences have been pretty bad. I mean, a lot of fans love it, but some don't even. Some fans, some big fans. And, I actually looked around. I was trying to find out what people didn't like. So I did a lot of searching. It looks like, a lot of people harp on the fact that it was badly edited, which I kind of agree there. I think, they say it gave away too much. Certainly agree, but there's a lot more that they haven't talked about. And actually, a lot more that they actually showed in stuff prior to that, which is funny, prior to the trailer. A lot of people saying dumb action movie, Michael Bay with dinosaurs.
Wow, that seems a little harsh to me. Because I liked Jurassic World, and I thought it was dumb, but in the best possible way. Not a movie that insults your intelligence by any means. But kind of like a cheesy fun, a harmless kind of fun summer blockbuster action movie, which is exactly what it was intending to be. And a lot of times, people forget that to sort of judge a movie based on its, of course you have to judge a film based on what it actually is, but you also sort of have to take intentions into it a little bit too. You can't necessarily judge a movie like Jurassic World on the same sort of platform that you would something that's very clearly going for, trying to win Oscars that year. There are definitely levels that you have to sort of consider. But getting back to the Fallen Kingdom trailer a little bit, one thing that I really that I noticed in particular right off the bat was that scene with Bryce and Chris in the bar. She's wearing a Henley shirt that looked a lot like the shirts that he was wearing in Jurassic World. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool costume wardrobe touch, because it sort of indicates, it hints a little bit at the relationship that they had in between Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, which we know has sort of splintered basically because of where we pick them up at the beginning of this trailer. But I thought that was a cool little touch. You know, she was very prim and proper and you know, dressed in management style in Jurassic World, and in this movie she seems a lot, you know, better equipped for the job at hand. So that was a cool little detail that, you know, is not really commented upon, but is just something that I thought was sort of thrown in there for the fans a little bit.
Yeah, you look, they had a lot of work to do. Like I said, they had to you know, fix a lot of the backlash from Claire's character. You know, she is a lot deeper of a character than people give her credit, but on the surface, you see this person and you just, a lot of people criticize her, you know, for what she's wearing and, you know, the shoes and all that. So they had a lot of work to do to say, look, she's different. She's not the same character. She's changed. And actually, somebody I was talking to, I think it was this guy, Carter from The Lost World is his Instagram handle. He said something like, she's essentially John Hammond, you know, and he went from capitalist to naturalist in just 4 years, you know? So that seems a lot like what her character is attempting to do here.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really considered that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're obviously in the first movie trying to reflect John Hammond a little bit because of the whole, you know, wearing all white. That's what John Hammond was doing. And now I guess they're trying to ground her a little bit more. But yeah, so, and actually a lot of people say it's kind of doing the Force Awakens bit where it's repeating a lot of, well, in this case, it's repeating a lot of The Lost World. You know, people criticize the Force Awakens because it's copies of the new, oh man, I'm getting these titles all mixed up. A New Hope. It, you know, it copies that a lot. But I don't think so. But this, yeah, on the surface, it definitely does. A lot of people just said the trailer was bad, and I didn't know how to expand upon that. You know, people just tweeting, "Oh my God, the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom trailer was bad." And I'm like, hey, could you give a little bit more context? I'd actually just love, I don't want to criticize them. I just want to know what is bad about it. Because there's certainly things that could be bad about it. And that editing, I don't know if you noticed that at all, but it's like, I don't know, I cannot follow a timeline in that trailer at all. Because there's volcanoes and all other stuff.
I think they've said that it's supposed to be like footage that's just from the first 57 minutes of the movie, right? Like, I think Colin tweeted that. So it seems like there's a lot of creative licensing being taken with the footage that we're seeing there, because they don't want to exactly lay it out maybe in the order that it happens. But there are some things that I was sort of questioning too, like the very end of the trailer, not to jump too far ahead, but that's exactly what I'm going to do, where, you know, all the dinosaurs are going off the edge of the cliff and Chris Pratt's character is running behind the gyrosphere, and like the gyrosphere goes off the edge of the cliff and we don't see what happens to Pratt's character. But then earlier in the trailer, we see him open up the back of that shipping container, and Rexy is in there. And like, to me, that has to take place after the cliff jump moment or whatever. Yeah. So like, there's a lot of sort of chronology issues that I'm not entirely certain are going to appear in that order in the actual movie. But I feel like they're just trying to save that as like the big, you know, holy crap moment at the end of the trailer. Yeah. But yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking about. That.
I think, didn't you compare it to like Mission Impossible, right? When he's in the what is it, the sandstorm? Yeah, it had a lot of that. Almost
like an inverse of Batman versus Superman, like Ben Affleck running into this massive cloud of dust, and like in Mission Impossible, I think it was Ghost Protocol. It's like Ethan Hunt is getting overwhelmed by this sandstorm, and it's like that's an image that we've seen a lot, you know, repeated in I think it might even happen to Tom Cruise again in The Mummy, if I remember right. I'm not sure.
That's a safe assumption. Tom he runs. That has to be in his contract that he has to run as rigidly as possible. And I think he copied his run. At one point, he was running very silly, like down the hill, sort of like Indiana Jones. But then that other part, when he's consumed by the smoke, it's like he's straight up Tom Cruise running.
Yeah, he's pumping it there for sure.
But yeah, and actually I think in that behind the scenes clip, we do see the gyrosphere in the water and then somebody diving in, which I think is him. So yeah, it's safe to assume he jumps in there. But yeah, you're right. I don't get the chronology there because they're dry. They're perfectly dry in that shipping container, whatever that ship is. And at one point the dock's exploding. They're running down the dock, and you're assuming they go from the dock to that boat. But like, I don't know. It's like all over the place. It's one of those answers I can't wait to find out what happens there. But yeah, it's people are just assuming this is it. This is the whole movie. This is the climax of the movie. It's not true, but that's what they're telling people. That's what they're showing via this trailer.
Right. Yeah. So I'm interested in what they're holding back from us, because those are like some pretty big moments and that they showed in that trailer. And that's just the first trailer, like there's a lot more that they have to unveil as far as like the sheer amount of footage that they're going to release before the movie comes out. So I'm curious if it's going to if they're going to use that cliff jump sequence as like the big hook that is at the end of every trailer, or if they are going to dip into, scenes and sequences that are in different parts of the movie, but the back half of the movie, for example, and just sort of hint at them without fully giving things away. But I think they would be smart to try to condense all of the marketing stuff to what's in the first hour and just leave the whole back half of the movie to be discovered by the fans and people that way. Because the images are big enough and blockbustery enough to sell the movie on their own, basically based on what we've seen thus far. So I would love, as somebody who writes about movies for a living, but also tries to avoid watching as many trailers as possible, just because I love the experience of going into a movie pure and sort of seeing. I typically watch like the first trailer for a movie, and that's about it. I don't, consume all of the TV spots and all that stuff, 5 or 6 trailers. Like, I'm not into that, because I like watching a movie and then like sort of forgetting about what I saw in the trailer, and then experiencing it all in context. So from that standpoint, I would love it if they just sort of recycled a lot of the stuff that we've seen before, maybe added a couple moments here and there, for sort of connecting the dots between those scenes, and just, drawing the line right there. But that would be my ideal marketing campaign for them, but I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen or not.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because like you see the trailer and you're like, wow, these are some pretty big moments that they're supposedly giving away, like the Rex just demolishing that Carnotaur and then screaming in front of the mountain as it's blowing up. Like, that's like an iconic image that you would assume you would save that for the film. So I wonder like how much of this is actually a big moment or not in the film, or maybe they'll take the Rogue One route and not even include half this stuff in the movie. I'm not really sure. Do you think they gave away too much though? That
moment that you're specifically talking about, that hero shot of the T-Rex roaring, I was like, man, I know fans would have loved to have seen this, in context in the movie, in the theater for the first time. Like that was the moment where I was like, where I had the thought of like, oh man, they might be giving away a little bit too much. And then I saw that tweet and I was like, okay, if it's in the first hour, then it's not that big of a deal. Because if that was like one of the last moments in the movie, then yes, of course, that would definitely be like, way too much too soon. But yeah, I think they're probably okay. And like I said, they sort of, I can see why they're doing it from a marketing perspective. They have to have a couple of big holy crap moments to sell, to sell people on getting, it's becoming more and more difficult to convince people to go out to a theater and see movies these days. So they got to do something to sort of generate whatever they can, and I don't blame them for showing that. So I think that's it seems like it might be too much, but I'm hoping that by the time all is said and done, we'll look back on it and be like, okay, that was fine.
Yeah, I hope so, man, because it just seemed like so much, but yeah, like we keep saying, it's only the first half of the movie, which, I mean, I don't want to see the whole first half either, but at least they're saving something. But at the same time, it makes me question, like, is that a good tactic if they just stick with the first half? Because like some of these quotes here, like Michael Bay with Dinosaurs, that's what it seems like. It's explosions, it's dinosaurs, it's a lot of that. And if people get the sense that that's all it is that a good tactic? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Man, yeah, it's a tough one. I don't envy the marketing people who are having to make these decisions, and I certainly don't envy Bayona and the people who, because a lot of times directors don't have much say over what gets released beforehand. Like special cases. I think like David Fincher had creative control over the marketing campaign for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo a few years ago. And so he had, he was like very integral in what went out. And I think Rian Johnson for Star Wars The Last Jedi was able to assert some sort of influence over, saying, okay, you can't show anything from these scenes. So I wonder if Bayona is a guy who has that level of pull with the studios at this stage in his career. I know he's made a handful of movies so far, but I'm not sure if he has a hit on the level of Fincher or Rian Johnson to be able to sort of stand up for himself in that way. But yeah, that'll be something to track as we go along.
I don't think that's going to be the case, because I feel like Jurassic World, the marketing on that just like gave away so much. A lot of the dinosaurs were shown right away, and you knew a ton, I feel like, about that movie going in. I feel like they're gonna, they got it right. Apparently last time they did all the right moves, to make that one of the biggest movies of all time. Crazily, I mean, nobody expected that. So I don't know. Do you feel like, even after all the backlash of Colin Trevorrow and Claire's character and film Twitter, do you feel like it's gonna have the same impact this time around? I'm not so sure.
I don't know if it'll make this. I don't think it'll make the same amount of money, but I do think it'll be surprising how much money it ends up making, because I think, film Twitter, it's easy to sort of get sucked into all that. But like, I don't remember what the actual numbers are, but the overall number of Twitter users is like super small in compared to like Facebook or any of the other the major social networks. So it's easy to sort of get sucked into this echo chamber where you're hearing, the same, let's call it 50 people, espouse the same theories over and over again. So you sort of feel like, oh, that's what the critical consensus on this is, or that's what the cultural consensus on this is. But that's really not the case. It's just it's a very small vocal amount of people. And so I think with Jurassic World having made as much money as it did, it proved that there was definitely an interest from general audiences in seeing a huge, big scale Jurassic action movie again. And so I think it's sort of their movie to screw up at this point. I don't know if it will make the same amount that Jurassic World did, just because the curiosity factor has sort of been removed, because, a big part of that movie's success, I think, was, we haven't seen a Jurassic Park movie in a long time. This is like a whole new kind of thing. The nostalgia was like a big deal on that movie. So, and this is only 2 years later, so there hasn't been enough time to sort of drive that aspect, that component back up in audiences. So I wonder if families are going to get together and go out and see the sequel in the same way that they did with Jurassic World.
Yeah, that's a good point with the families. I don't know, if it's just going to be action and chaos, maybe they might not show up. But I mean, that you got to expect something like that with a Jurassic movie,
right?
So let's continue with the marketing tactics, because I thought it was interesting. Like, I mean, we were all blown away with how crazy Universal handled it this time around. I mean, they've for sure never given so much love to a movie, I feel like. Maybe even movies in general, but we started off with like this initial teaser that leaked early and it confused everybody. Everybody thought this stuff was going to, you know, show up a week early. But then it actually came out, you know, Sunday Night Football. Then periodically throughout the week, we had like all these short teasers. We saw, oh man, they were like shining like the bat signal on buildings across the world. It was like crazy. And then we had that behind the scenes video, which came before the trailer for some reason. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, and then we had the trailer. So what do you think? You know, do you agree with the tactic of like overloading everybody all at once, or do you think that was a smart move or no?
Man, it did seem like a lot. And you know, I remember I mentioned Star Wars a minute ago. I think they did something similar where they released a behind the scenes featurette, but it was sort of in place of a trailer, if I remember right, for The Force Awakens. And I think they've probably done it for The Last Jedi as well, where that's like a part of their long-term marketing technique. And like all these featurettes, you know, I was just like doing a search on the back end, the archives of slashfilm.com, and looking for featurettes because I was wondering about that. And it seems like, you know, I'm looking right now and there's like Baby Driver, Dunkirk, Valerian. All of these movies have featurettes, but they tend to be released around the release of the movie itself, not around the release of a trailer. So, you know, it's generally those are used to sort of, you know, get people over the hump or like, you know, enhance somebody's understanding of a movie right around the time when they can actually buy tickets to it. But dropping a featurette like that, a behind the scenes video, and then the trailer in a week, a couple days of each other,
it was like 1 or 2 days.
Seems like it might have been a little bit of overkill, especially with that vocal segment of Twitter and all of that, like I was talking about, having sort of a backlash on the original Jurassic World. It seemed like those are the people who are spreading these videos and sort of the cultural gatekeepers, almost the people who are letting general audiences know about this movie. So it may have been smarter to pump the brakes a little bit. But I guess they have all sorts of numbers, you know, they're crunching numbers left and right, trying to figure out what the best way to, you know, get these things in front of the most people are. And so they have people who are smarter than me who are running these marketing teams and all that stuff. So I'm sure they know what they're doing to some degree. But, you know, on the outside looking in, it certainly did seem like they were, maybe pushing it a little too hard at this stage in the game. Because like I said, we still have, 6-7 months or something before the film comes out. So it's going to be a little while, and there's plenty of time to sort of create a sustained sense of interest. But it seemed like they're sort of blowing it all right now. And then, you know, who knows what they're going to do for the second trailer release.
I know. Yeah, I have no idea what they have planned at all. I mean, I never would have expected so much promotion in 1 week. It was crazy. And I think it was at the moment, like the middle of the week, where I was like, I think everybody forgot that they didn't like Jurassic World. All of a sudden I'm like, wow, people really love this. Then the trailer hit, it backed off a little bit, but showing that behind the scenes before the trailer, I feel like everybody in this community was at least like, oh, I guess I don't even need to see a trailer anymore. That was good
there
enough.
was so much footage in there too. It was surprising how much, you know, because a lot of times they just do quick little things where it's like fun with the actors, where, you know, they're in between takes, but they sort of like went out of their way to highlight a lot of action and even some lines that didn't show up in the real trailer, which I was surprised about.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely parts of the second half of the movie were in there. So you can kind of take what you will from it, but there's a lot in there that you can sift through. And at this point, 6.5 months away, I'm like, I think I already know the entire movie. It's funny. Like I can kind of piece it together based off of like what I know from the production and stuff like that. And also what they showed in these teasers and behind the scenes and stuff. So it's really interesting. Man, what was it? Jeff Goldblum had a line in there, something about I'm here again talking about dinosaurs. Like,
yeah,
it was awesome, and that was one of the things that really surprised me was showing him before the trailer. I thought he would be like this major reveal because we obviously knew he was in the movie, but we hadn't seen anything, no pictures, nothing, no videos, and that was the first time we saw him. I was like, oh, that's where you're going to show him? That's where you're showing, because that's what everybody wants to see. Let's face it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm like, I actually listened to your episode where you guys like broke down and analyzed the trailer, and the theory that Goldblum might be the bad guy in this movie is a fascinating one, because I sort of read his comments as him being the guy who implies that, yeah, all these dinosaurs should probably die because humanity, is if we're not careful, they're going to be here after us. So like I read it as him being okay with letting nature take its course in that way. So I'm interested. Do you think that Dr. Ian Malcolm is going to be the full-on human villain of Fallen Kingdom?
I don't know, man. That is a good point. And I was kind of confused at first. I didn't know how to take it. I at first was like, man, what side is he on? But then I just, I thought about it in a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, he's definitely on the side of, I thought for some reason that he would switch sides due to interviews and stuff like that he had talked about previously. I was like, maybe he's on the other side. Maybe he's about saving these dinosaurs. And not that it's like any kind of canon or anything, but months back, Loot Crate even did like a fun little video where they were talking about saving the dinosaurs, and they had what was his name, Piot. I can't remember his last name, but he did like a Jeff Goldblum voice or Ian Malcolm voice, and it was all about saving the dinosaurs. And I'm like, that's a nice little tie in there, but I wonder if that's the route they'll go, and I don't think so anymore. I mean, that's a good point. If he's going to be the villain, like maybe not the straight up villain, or Jurassic really doesn't have villains per se. I feel like they have characters that have like bad intentions and stuff like that, but that would be really interesting because here's a character we know, we love. A lot of us love him. I've seen a few that actually dislike him, which is weird.
Oh man, he's the best.
He is. He really is. Just on and off the screen, he's the same guy, right? I mean, it's funny. And at one point, somebody made on that, I think that episode was like, he seems so different than he has in the past few years, whether it was Independence Day or even Thor. He's very Jeff Goldblum-y in those movies, and here he's so different. He's definitely darker and older looking, and he's got that beard, and even his voice sounds so different. I was kind of like caught off guard by how like almost out of breath he sounded, like he just didn't have it in him anymore. He's
he's definitely a guy who's seen a lot, who's sort of been worn down, and you get the sense that he's been having these conversations, for the past 20 years or whatever, and he's just sort of he's like done with it. But yeah, the idea that he's like all dressed in black and all that, and yeah, the idea of like him being a villain, I only mean that insofar as maybe he's his mentality is the opposite of Claire's mentality of like saving the dinosaurs, and like who knows, maybe there could be a situation where this happens obviously in the first hour of the movie, and then maybe he meets up with Claire, maybe he finds out about the dinosaur protection group, maybe he maybe he switches sides later in the movie or something that we haven't seen. Maybe this is like a deliberate ploy from the marketing campaign to sort of make us think that he's the villain, but he's not actually. So I would not put that past them either.
Yeah, I could hope so. I mean, I hope he's in more than that scene, because by the way it sounds, it's like a cameo. Everybody keeps saying cameo or small but impactful or something like that. So yeah, it'll be really interesting. I hope it is more than that courtroom scene. But I'm going to cherish anything I can get from him, because every movie he's in, I'm like, I just need to see it because of him. Like, he's incredible. Yeah. But yeah, that would be like a crazy dilemma if he was just like even an opposition in any sort. I don't know how I would feel about that. And I think it's fair to say that he's kind of always been the opposition, not necessarily too bad or anything, but he's always been opposed to every idea, but he always gets himself involved somehow. But yeah, let's dive into some of those concepts, because there was a lot of stuff in that trailer or even the behind the scenes stuff that was revealed, and different things, articles throughout the week. We did learn about that dinosaur protection group that Claire has founded. So she's taken an initiative here. She's somebody who didn't necessarily care before. She barely knew the names of dinosaurs. It seemed like she didn't care about like anything. It seemed like in the first movie. But now she's serious. She's founded this group. She's got a few team members, it looks like, going to rescue these dinosaurs. It almost is like the inverse of The Lost World in a way. Similar story, but inverse in a way. And I guess we did kind of see that protection group play out in the trailer a little bit with all that crew. She looks like she got some military people, or at least maybe InGen, soldiers. I don't really know. They looked very similar to those InGen soldiers from the last movie. But what do you think about this group? I mean, we learned a little bit, I think, from article EW.com, and actually the viral site is up now. I don't know if you saw that, but
no, I haven't. Yeah,
the Dinosaur Protection Group website, I think it might be just dinosaurprotectiongroup.com. Don't quote me on that, but they've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook now, and there's like a nice image of Claire in a classroom with Justice Smith's character and Daniela Pineda's character. So there's that. And yeah, the website, you can sign up, put your name and email, and I guess, at some point they'll contact you with some way to help save these dinosaurs.
Nice.
What do you think about that group?
So I think thematically it makes sense for Claire to undergo that transformation, because I think the moment in Jurassic World where I forget what species of dinosaur, you'll probably know off the top of your head, but where it's like the moment in Jurassic World where she and Chris Pratt's character come across the practical effect,
the
like
dying Apatosaurus.
Yes. Yeah. So that moment seemed to have a big impact on her, and that was like a turning point for her character. So I can see how this, her starting this group and sort of wanting to protect these creatures is the logical extension of that character turn that we saw in that movie, right? But but I'm so from a thematic level, I think it makes sense. From a practical level, I'm not really sold on it, and I don't know if you've seen this going around making the rounds, but I think it was Screen Crush's Matt Singer that said after the Jurassic World 2 synopsis started going around, why would you care about saving these dinosaurs if you could just make more dinosaurs? So like the idea of this movie being this sort of animal rights allegory, it doesn't have the same impact when you can just recreate the animals that you're trying to protect. There's like a little bit of a disconnect there, I think, in like the reality of what they're trying to do, and then thematically and from a character standpoint, what they're trying to do with Claire's character there. But I think there's potential for it to be okay. Sometimes, as long as the movie is fun and paced well and makes sense in context with itself, sometimes you can forgive stuff like that and relegate those sorts of comments to just being like nitpicks after the fact, and it doesn't really bother you when you're watching the actual movie. So personally, that's what I'm hoping happens here, because I want to really like this movie. I just I still need a little bit of convincing based on the trailer that I've seen so far.
Yeah, in the beginning, she tries to con Chris, or Owen, I guess, if you want to call him that, tries to con him to the island by, using Blue as a tactic, and she seems like such a different person, like we were talking about through the outfit, through this whole protection group. I'm really interested to see what Justice Smith and Daniela Pineda do. But yeah, I mean, should these dinosaurs be saved? It is like a really great question. And you're right, that scene where they come across the dying Apatosaurus, that is the complete 180 scene for her, because now she sees them as real animals. Before, they were probably just genetic creations to her or something, she didn't really care about. But now they're real animals, and I think that's where that logic comes in. And after Malcolm's been in this situation and he doesn't care, so I could see him being opposed, to saving dinosaurs and what it entails if we just let them roam free and the world becomes a different place after that. But in terms of her, after seeing that and making the eye contact with that dinosaur, she now sees them as animals. And, it got me thinking, like, if there's, a zoo on the edge of a volcano in some country or some place, like, I think, you would try to save those animals first, right? You wouldn't just let this volcano erupt and, kill all the animals. That would be inhumane, right? I would feel like.
Right, yeah.
But
I think there's that, and I think the idea of there being a zoo where the animals that are in there are extinct or hard to come by, or rare animals in any way, tigers, and where there's only a limited number of them left on the planet is the difference. Because when you have the technology to just be able to create more of them instantly, then that's where it comes, because you're not really the idea of losing them doesn't really have the same impact as it would if you're losing a bald eagle, where like you can't really use that same technology in the same way to recreate those creatures. But I don't know. I mean, that's like one of the complaints that I've seen going around about that movie. And like I said, it doesn't really bother me that much. But I mean, I guess sort of on that same topic, though, that's one of the things that I was surprised that wasn't in the Fallen Kingdom trailer was the idea of hybrids and genetic recreations and all that stuff that I thought was going to be the centerpiece of this movie. They didn't even touch on it at all in that first trailer. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I think they're just saving something. I think that's what it comes down to. But that is very true, and I think it just boils down to them not wanting to maybe spoil the second half, I guess. Because I think those things will be there. They made such a big deal of it, and they made, specifically a big deal with Vic Hoskins with Owen Grady there talking about the military and training these things for battle and all that stuff and creating the most efficient version that they could. I don't think that concept's dead. I think they're going to continue on with that. We've heard rumors about stuff like that, so I think it's a huge possibility that they're just saving it for some reason. Because like I said, the Indominus Rex was one that they blew it right off the bat. I mean, I think it was like actually leaked via like party plates or something like that. Like actually came out like before anything. So I guess they just don't want to, do that. Hopefully they're taking that, Star Wars tactic where they're like, this is something we're not going to show, even though they did actually show it in the behind the scenes. If you take a look, it's actually in there. But how they created it,
and like Dr. Wu, all of that stuff too, like that, he wasn't mentioned. None of the, that was like a big thing at the end of Jurassic World was like him going off with the, sort of saving the tech and Masrani and all that stuff, and like none of that appears here. So I'm just sort of surprised that those things that you would think would be like integral to the entire plot of the movie, not just dropped in the back half, are just like vanished and not even mentioned. But maybe those are just things that, like you said, they're just trying to hold off, and maybe the second trailer will go more into detail about like the actual story of the movie instead of just the one sentence premise where like there's a volcano that's about to go off and you got to save the dinosaurs. Like that's basically the this whole trailer condensed into that sentence. So maybe the second trailer will sort of give it a little bit of room to breathe a little bit.
What did Chris Pratt said? He's like, what could possibly go wrong? Of course we all know what could go wrong. And I think he's just, he's a jokester that I feel like people took him way too seriously in the first movie. He's just like a goofball, and I saw it in this trailer as well. So it's cool that they're continuing that trend as well. But and if you do pay attention to that behind the scenes, there's a lot of stuff, whether it is like the second half or maybe hybrids. I don't know what their intentions are with that dinosaur that's teased in that behind the scenes stuff, but what was that? What else was there? I don't know, but in terms of like where this story is going and stuff, we saw a lot of concepts that we've seen before, whether it is taking these dinosaurs off the island or even specific shots, like very similar shots being like the the airplane, just very reminiscent of Jurassic Park 3. That compy that's with the toys in that beginning of the trailer, you see it like kind of frozen there. It's very reminiscent of Jurassic Park 3.
Great shot.
There's a lot of stuff, whether it's The Lost World or Jurassic Park 3, which I'm happy that they're including those tie-ins in a way, because people for some reason still believe that those movies don't exist, like they wrote them out for some reason. But I feel like it's good to see that. Do you think it is too similar, like people talked about with The Force Awakens? Do you think we'll get that complaint or no?
No, I don't think so, and I think it's maybe because I don't run in the circles where people are constantly talking about The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 like you guys do. You're like so immersed in that world, and I think for the most part, and not to like overgeneralize, but I think generally the first Jurassic Park is like held up as a masterpiece, as it should be. Yeah. And then generally it sort of drops off with the sequels a little bit until Jurassic World comes back around. I would have to check like the Rotten Tomatoes scores to see if like critically that is the same thing, but just sort of anecdotally from speaking with friends and family members and people who are fans of blockbuster movies, I think the general perception is that like Lost World is like not quite as good. It's like it has some good moments, but it's like a little dumber than the original Jurassic Park. And then like Jurassic Park 3 is sort of like the movie that people don't really even talk about anymore at all. So Jurassic World at least got people talking again. So I don't know if there's enough I guess permeation, if that's a word, of the culture for the Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 for people to even be able to remember or identify any similarities or sort of homages outside of you guys, the hardcore fans.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And like we were talking about before, just the average viewer is like fine with all the Fallen Kingdom stuff, but yeah, I wonder how much people will care. Like, Star Wars is obviously a much bigger franchise, and everybody remembers those movies and cares about those movies. And not everybody is in this. It's not the same level. But and like you said, the Lost World, for a lot of people, it drops off. I don't understand that. But Jurassic Park 3, I totally understand why that happened. But I think the Lost World has actually aged a lot better for some people. But it does take that more big dumb action movie than Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park was something different completely. Like it's not even on the same level as a lot of that stuff filmmaking wise. So I can understand why people, fall off the boat after that. It makes a lot of sense, but people compare Jurassic World to Jurassic Park, and I'm just like, you can't do that. You can't do it. Right. They're made completely different. They're very different movies. They just don't make those kinds of movies anymore. It's funny that people still compare like that, but we do a lot of protecting of the franchise in our circles. So we try to we try to make people like act better towards some of these other movies. Jurassic Park 3 is understandable. I've come to appreciate it a lot more after Jurassic World. I think there's a lot of good stuff that ties in there that people just didn't realize before, and maybe they did that on purpose. Maybe they tied some things together on purpose, or maybe not. Maybe it was just all coincidence.
Well, that's interesting. I haven't watched it since seeing Jurassic World, so I'll have to go back and check that out again and see sort of how it works in the overall flow of things. But, yeah, if you
retcon a lot of things in your own mind, you can see hints of them maybe like starting the whole hybrid dinosaur thing. I think a lot of people compare the Spinosaurus to its real life counterpart, which is very different animal. It's not the same thing at all. So I think a lot of people can kind of surmise that maybe this Spinosaurus was the first attempt or one of many attempts or something like that. You get these hatchery scene, or the scene where they're going into the compound, and it looks like there's a lot of testing and different things going on. So you can kind of like surmise that maybe that was the first step, but I don't know. And there might be a lot of that stuff actually in this movie that, like we were talking about before, has not even scratched the surface and not in the trailer. Actually, from the synopsis of the movie, which was just found online after the fact, I want to read this part right here and see what you think about this. It says, arriving on the unstable island as lava begins raining down, their expedition uncovers a conspiracy that could return our entire planet to a perilous order not seen since prehistoric times. So yeah, we didn't see anything like that in the trailer. Do you have any theories on like what that conspiracy could be to take us back to the prehistoric times?
Well, I wonder if it has to do with Wu and the genetic, that aspect of things, and I'm wondering if because you guys are so like into, you're on the ground, boots on the ground on this franchise all the time. I'm sort of like spread across a million different franchises as I'm writing and stuff. So I like try to do my deep dives where I can, but I'm wondering if you think that this means that the dinosaurs are coming back to like mainland America or like North America or somewhere that's an inhabited place that's not just another island. Do you think that that's what they're sort of hinting at, is that like if the dinosaurs, make their way to a big continent like that and then eventually take over, that could be that sort of end game that they're hinting at there? Or do you think it's going to be a little bit more contained than that? I mean, talking about the Lost World, like the San Diego sequence, like do you think we're in for a repeat of that kind of thing with this film?
I think so. I honestly do. I think like we talked about before with the behind the scenes featurette, if you pay attention there's a lot of stuff like the first shot actually of that featurette is like a very forested mountain with a mansion on it. And I think that's going to play a big role in the second half of the film. And at one point you actually see Chris Pratt and the little girl that they showcased in that featurette dangling off, the mansion, it looks like. So there's a lot of that. You see Blue's head, like they have this, the head that they use for photography to like kind of adjust the lighting and stuff like that. They have that on steps that are very, I don't know, granite or something. It looks like the steps of a mansion. So and obviously there's that scene in the featurette where they're in that museum area, wherever that is, and there's a dude like dying on the ground that gets pulled away like very horror movie style. Yeah. So I think it's guaranteed that somehow.
But you think that mansion is on is like in North America somewhere and not on a secluded island?
I don't know where it could be. I'm going to assume it's going to be in London somewhere because of a lot of the production took place out there. And in I think it was, where did it? Some article I read, I think it was on Independent. They mentioned that what's his name? I'm blanking on his name. The guy from Babe. He's in this movie.
Oh, James Cromwell.
Yeah, James Cromwell. He's a friend of John Hammond's that they formed all this stuff together, and I think he's probably going to be, his home base is going to be in London somewhere, I would assume, or something like that. European country for sure.
Okay, cool.
So
we'll have to see.
I think that's where that's going to go, and I don't think it's going to be on the level of The Lost World where it's like rampaging. I think it's going to be much more intimate, and they've talked about how this movie goes from like it kind of like, I guess you would say, like a triangle. It kind of goes up and then back down again, and it's got a more intimate ending than you'd expect, I think. So I think it's all going to take place there, but whether how many dinosaurs go free or go anywhere, right. You might have to look at the list of actors on IMDb and just take a look. It's obviously not the most accurate thing in the world, but look at some of those titles that they have there. Very interesting tidbits you can surmise from that. Nice. But yeah, I think that's where it's going to go. And whatever this conspiracy is, I'm not too sure. I wonder if it has something to do with the volcano itself, because we're all wondering why they built a theme park on a volcano, like an island that's gonna erupt at any moment. Right. We're all wondering that, but I've got this theory that I don't know, somebody I did some research on geothermic power because that's how they run this island, right? So I think maybe they were messing with that somehow, but that doesn't really explain the taking our entire planet to a perilous order not seen since prehistoric times. I don't know. But
yeah, I think that sentence must mean that like the dinosaurs get out of control somehow. They escape, and the theory is that they could take over eventually and sort of return us back to the old era.
Now, is that okay to you after the Planet of the Apes series? Like, because it would be so similar, right?
I would be okay with that. Yeah, I would love that as a third movie. If that's how Fallen Kingdom ends, with almost like, I know we've mentioned Star Wars a bunch, but almost like an Empire Strikes Back, like a cliffhanger sort of down, like a dark ending where hope is there, but it's far from a sure thing for our heroes, and like dinosaurs are running rampant, and like the whole third movie is them having to deal with the consequences of that, and like maybe try to round some up or hunt some down, or just learn to live and coexist with them, if that's even possible in some way. Like, I feel like there's a lot there that they could do I mean, obviously that's jumping way ahead because we barely know, we've only seen the first trailer for this movie, but yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there if they were to go in that direction.
Yeah, and I think it all falls on Ian Malcolm, really. Like, look, his line in the first movie, boy, do I hate being right all the time. It's happened, and he's been right every single time. And if he's the one in this courtroom or wherever he is, if he's saying, like, we got to be careful with how this turns out because they might be here after us, I think he's going to be right. I think that's what it comes down to. He's going to be right again. And it's
and ultimately that would sort of validate the thematic message of the very first movie. Like we tampered with something that we shouldn't have as a species, and now we're going to pay the price for it. I mean, I realize it's like a bleak ending, especially for a franchise that's so mainstream. Yeah. But like if the third movie ended that way, I would kind of be thrilled with like the dinosaurs taking over and like ascending to the top of the food chain again, and humanity being scattered to the winds and all of that. Like, it sounds bleak, but I think I would love what that says about the messaging there and the lessons that we need to learn. And these lessons, from the original Jurassic Park are still relevant right now. Yeah. These are things that we are still talking about as a society, not just with cloning and all that, but like with climate change and everything else. There's a lot of relevant stuff in that movie that still is very much on the forefront of cultural conversations that are happening in 2017. So I would love to see some filmmaker make a big statement, a big closing statement to round out that trilogy, as a way as like a warning to humanity. Like, pay attention, look at, this is obviously an exaggerated version, but this is what could happen to us. Yeah. Well, dude, this has been an absolute blast. I really enjoyed having you on the show here, but come on, look, that smoke is traveling really fast, and it is starting to get a little dark over here, so why don't we head out? But before we do, why don't you just let everybody know where they can find you? Sure, yeah. I'm on Twitter at Ben Pearson. I'm writing every day at slashfilm.com, and you can hear me on the Slash Film Daily podcast, which is on iTunes, Overcast, all the popular podcast apps. We basically just do a daily roundup of all of the best movie news and TV news stories that you can find on slashfilm.com. Yes, I do. I love that show a lot. It's awesome. Cool. Thanks, man. Well, safe travels, my friend. Let's get out of here. All right. Thanks for having me. No problem. Make sure to visit JurassicParkPodcast.com to find all our past episodes, brand new news articles, information on how to contact us, and much more. It's a great source for everything related to the podcast, and of course, Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. Head to JurassicParkPodcast.com and help us build a great community. Anybody hear that? Thanks for listening to the 129th episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. Of course, a big thanks to Ben for joining me here today to discuss the trailer that I swear we won't be talking about this for the next 6 months. I swear. We do have a ton of great content lined up for the new year, I promise. But today, I think we covered some of the most interesting points that people have been discussing online about the trailer. Now, don't miss Ben on slashfilm.com, writing articles, and on the podcast, Slash Film Daily. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Ben Pearson. If you want to interact with us, we do most of our work over on Twitter, at Jurassic Park Pod. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Jurassic Park Podcast, and our Instagram handle is at Jurassic Park Podcast. You can listen to us via iTunes, Google Play, Podomatic, YouTube, our website, or wherever else podcasts are found. So make sure to subscribe to automatically get new episodes every week. If you haven't already, please give us a 5-star review in iTunes or a great review wherever you listen to the podcast. It will seriously help out our rankings and make it easier for fans like you to find us. We're usually spotted commenting on the Jurassic Park subreddit as Jurassic Park Podcast. Don't forget to check out JurassicParkPodcast.com for all the links you heard here today. If you want to get a hold of us, you can email us with any news stories, MP3s, comments, or if you want to debut a segment of your own, send them to JurassicParkPod@gmail.com, or you can submit questions directly on our website contact form.
If you'd like to record something for the show, send it in to us and we'll feature it in an upcoming episode. If you don't have any way to record, you can give our voicemail line a call and leave us a message. That number is 732-825-7763. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
No, I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
5 minutes. Drop what you're doing and leave now.